All right, cool. Okay, so that's good. Well, let's start with a little bit of housekeeping first. Obviously, welcome to the webinar. Thank you for making the time today to jump on. Um, it's going to be myself and Alison running this one. Alison's going to be answering your questions in chat as they come up, and I'll be presenting that to you. But as we go, if you do have questions, we do have a Q&A function, which will allow us to easily keep track of your questions, as well as others to be able to see what you're asking there as well. So if you can use that, so just click on, open up your Zoom bar, click on the Q&A, you'll be able to grab that from there. Also, as we do with all of our webinars, we do record these. So this webinar will be recorded, and if you want a copy of it, you can contact the support team afterwards to ask for that from them. All right, now to kick things off, I'm going to pop a poll out there for you guys, as it gives us a bit of an idea of how you guys have been using the console cloud so far, as well as how long you've been with us, and it'll relate a little bit towards what we're going to be going through today. So I'm just going to launch that there. You should see it pop up on screen. If you can just have a bit of a quick look at that now, that would be great. And while you do, I'm just going to introduce what we're going to be going through today. So as the webinar name obviously suggests, we're going to be having a look at the analytics module, and we're going to be having a look at what we've done with it. Our team has been busy making quite a few updates to it, improvements, adding new reports, adding new features, and we've actually gone through and redesigned all of the reports that were there to embrace the new Reapit branding, as well as to add that new functionality in to increase and improve your reporting functionality. Now, and giving you the option now to be able to change what's been reported on from chart to chart, also just within the charts themselves. So there's more information that we can drill down upon and have a bit of a look at there. All right, and in saying that, the agenda for the day, as I said, that's where we're going to start with some of those new functions that are in there. We'll have a look, and I want to introduce and demonstrate to you the new reports, as well as what pulses are, which is an entirely new function that hasn't existed in console before. All right, I can see here most of you've got a couple of people who are new to cloud, a couple of people from who've been with us for only about a year or two. Most of you 2 to 5 years. So you've got you've gotten probably quite used to the product, and you're now looking to see what it can tell you about what you're doing. Nearly all of you are already using reports, which is great. Most of you don't need to know what analytics does, but I will be covering a little bit. But you're looking to find out about the new reports and features, as well as to maybe get some ideas how you can get some more out of it. None of you have heard about pulses yet. Well, that'll be interesting, because I think the pulses is something you're going to want to stick around for. All right, I'm just going to end that poll there, and we'll get underway. There we go. Okay, let's just change my screen share a little bit. And that one, by the looks of things. Right, here we are. Okay, so up on screen should be the Reapit training office, and we're just going to get underway with with a little bit as we go. Now, one of the things we do want to talk about, of course, is as we with reporting, and whenever we're looking at reporting, is about the data. And when you want to get the most out of your reporting, it's all about having clean data within the system. And we'll sort of talk about this as we go through today, and I'll make a few callbacks to it. But a lot of this comes down to just what you do day to day within your, say, residential or commercial workflows, and what you're using. And if you are using these workflows and you're using them end to end, a lot of the reports you've got within the system will have a lot more information that can provide you, and will be a lot more accurate. It's a big part of what we encourage within sort of the functionality of console, is to get the most out of them. And we'll be calling back through to these today, because we've increased the functionality from both from the analytics side and how it looks back and talks to some of these as well. Well, not so much talks to them, but can take you out to them when you need to. Now, to kick us off, just like I said earlier, a little bit more housekeeping. One of the things I do want to talk about, and I was sort of in there a second ago, but under settings and down under users, something I do like to point out, of course, is if you are looking to access the reports and potentially you don't have access to them, that's because only super administrators as well as office administrators have access to the reports that are within your system. But the good thing is all systems do have access to reports in one form or another. And if we jump into analytics, so every system and every office will have access to analytics, but some reports might be restricted to premium users only. There's one other thing in here as well. All of the reports in here, all of the reports up the top here will be accessible to your office admins, but some are only accessible to the super admin, and you will need to provide access to those to others as the super admin, or the super admin might need to provide access to you if you need access to them. Potentially you're working accounts and part of your job is around reporting on fee revenue. You would need to ask them for access, at which point they can come through here, tick that off, and then provide access to you nice and easily. Might take like it says here, up to 10 minutes to take effect, at which point you will then be able to get in there and perform your role. All right. Now, housekeeping out of the way, let's get in and have a look at a couple of reports. So I'm going to be starting off today with having a look at, I'm kind of calling it back to basics, so to speak, and going with probably one of the most common reports, one of the ones we are all most familiar with. But it's going to give me a bit of a chance to talk about some key functionality of it and drill into that a little bit, and also have a bit of a look at some of the new features we've put in here. That said, starting with some of the basics and probably some of the more important things to make sure you are using to get the most out of your reports. First thing I want to talk about are the filters on the right-hand side here. When you are setting up any one of the reports within the system, they will come with a set of filters which are relevant to the reports that you're looking at. In this particular case, this is an all properties report here, and the filters that I've got, while they'll be able to have some fairly common ones, which are across most reports, things like property manager, office, portfolio, you can also start to get a lot of, specific property features through here. Each one of these can be easily updated by just clicking on that there and then just making some changes out of the list as it populates. Here we go. So let's just say I just want to focus on the Melbourne portfolio for today. As I go down the page as well, I do have the option to, I scroll right past it, I might have. I do have the option to change certain filters in here, potentially maybe property type as an example, which one will look at the property type set up within my system, and I'll be able to change my filters based on those kind of things here as well. So pretty broad strokes at that particular point. And maybe I just want to focus on apartments. And then, so you'll get a lot of property features through here, but you'll also get some things around things like rent. And potentially something you might want to look at is coming through and putting in some filters around the rent. As that loads. So my connection here can be a little bit slow. I do apologize for that. Just running through a VPN. Okay, here we go. We can see some of the rents that are in here, where I could include specific ones or specific ranges if need be. That said, if there is a particular filter in here that we wanted to toggle off, you do have the option as well to come through and toggle off certain filters altogether, depending on what you need to do there. Now, if you have set up a filter in here that you would like to save as potentially your default view, you can come up to the top to these three dots and you can set that as your default filter, meaning that when you or your user logs in and runs this report again, it's going to be running that report with that particular filter in place. At any time though, you can come through and restore that to defaults. You can restore that to your default filter based off what you had saved. So that's what this one up here will do. It'll always restore it back to your default filter for that particular one. Now my one is just the system default, which means that everything's turned on, but yours of course will just remember whatever you've done last time. But yeah, easy way to control the data that you're looking at. Now, another sort of common tool you'll see throughout all of your reports within the system is these two options up the top here. It won't always be chart and table view. So in this case, we're looking at chart and table view. You might have a few other ones in there, depending on which ones you're looking at. And we'll look at a couple of those earlier because we've got a new one of these which has been popped into your business KPIs, which I think is well worthwhile knowing about. But in this particular example here, for your all properties report, you can go between your charts, which we'll come back to, and you can also come out to a table, which is just going to put all of your properties into a table with relevant information in there that we can see. Tons and tons of information. Quite a lot of good stuff in there. Now, one of the key things here, of course, is using your filters on the right-hand side, you can drill down on specific portfolios or particular areas, at which point you would be able to, say, get this down to a very specific tight group. And let's just look at that now. Again, let's come back and let's just say I was just looking to pull out all of my properties from the Melbourne portfolio. I can see, Emma, you've popped your hand up there. If you've got a question, can I get you to pop it into the Q&A chat? Thank you. As we've got, yeah, there we go. Alison's on it. As we've got Alison in the chat there, and she can help you out with that. All right, so coming back to this, so I've just filtered this down on my Melbourne portfolio. Maybe I want to pull this out of the system. That's what I'm looking to produce a report for. Maybe that's something I want for myself, or it's been requested of me. And now that I've got that in place, I can use these three dots over here to download that. That's going to give me the option to download that as an image if I wanted it, but more likely, as it's a table, I want that as a CSV. So I can take that out, I can pivot it, do what I need to do with it. Now, same can be done as well if we come across to our charts. And we'll just quickly have a bit of a look at that over here. So coming across to the charts, across the top, any one of the charts that we see within the system here, let's take this one here as an example, you'll have the option from the three dots on that as well to come, download, and this one here would be an image or potentially a CSV of the related information. The image is a great way of pulling that out as maybe an infographic that you might be throwing into a report that you're producing, or potentially taking along to a meeting where you want to highlight a specific thing using the information you're pulling out of Console Cloud. Now, up the very top here as well, you'll find that you do have an option to print a detailed, I guess, a detailed PDF report of the reports and charts that you see within here, as well as to send that through an email reporting system here, where you could send that out to a specific people as well. So to yourself there as well, sorry. From the three dots, you have the option to download that the whole dashboard as a PDF or an image as well. And if we have a bit of a quick look at that there, when you do this, it does give you a few options there with regards to how that's going to display, and you can sort of see what that's pulling into that particular PDF as well. Now my screen's a wee bit small, so it does scroll across, but yeah, you get a bit of a bit of an idea of the information that's popping in there. So there's quite a few different tools in analytics that helps you get the information out of analytics, which once you've put your filters in place and you've refined it down, it's a really handy thing to know. And so keep that in mind as we go through today, because nearly everything I show you, well, you can take it out if you need to. So there we go. All right, now let's get into some of the new features and have a bit of a look at some of the charts that we've popped into the system. So I'm just going to scroll down the page here. We're going to go right to the very bottom well, near the very bottom, where we're going to have a look at some of these charts down here. I'm going to start with this one here. This is actually an older chart. This is one that's been in the system for quite a while, but I still like to highlight it because let's just say I'm going to scroll in down onto the Melbourne portfolio again. So it's just where I happen to work. And I can see in here quite easily through this chart, it's giving me some fairly heads up stats. But a lot of people I find aren't aware that this is actually something you can use to drill down on specific areas. And let's just say I wanted to filter quickly by all of my properties that are in Hawthorn. I can click on that there, and it's going to filter the rest of my charts and my table by the suburb of Hawthorn, as an example. Once that's done, of course, and we can sort of see that starting to work in a few different areas there, I can clear that selection just once that's loaded there. Okay. All right. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so it doesn't normally take that long. It's normally just a few seconds. Must have had a bit of a hiccup. But just going to clear that, and we're just going to go back to the default view. Now, one of the new reports in the All Properties report, so those that might be familiar with the old one will notice that quite a few of these were not have changed from what they used to look at. This one here, rent, vacancy, property count by portfolio, has changed, been updated a little bit as well. We can see through here, obviously, we can highlight the information with our mouse, but if we were to select any one of these, again, it's going to perform much the same action as what we did with the map, and it's just going to filter the rest of the reports down based off our selected information in there. And we can see some of the other ones are changing to reflect that. And they're all loading at this point in time, but hopefully, there we go. I'm just going to clear that selection there as well. All right. And then I want to have a bit of a look at this portfolio change. This portfolio change chart is actually highlighting some of the new functionality that we've popped into the system. And the first one I want to point out is this drop down up the top here. You now, through a lot of your charts, have the option to come through and change the data that is being displayed just through one of these drop downs. In this case here, we're currently looking at vacant properties. And if I wanted to flick this over to say, have a bit of a look at the property count per portfolio, I can do so by quickly and easily coming through and changing that there. And we can see that. So, and easily just hovering over the various different names down the bottom is highlighting which portfolio has what in there. I also have the option using these buttons here, another new feature, to come through and change how that's being displayed. Currently, as it is being displayed in a line graph, but if I wanted that in columns or bars, I can come through and quickly change the way that's looking. Personally, I like line for this particular one, but it's up to you, of course. Now, if you were coming through here and you wanted to select any one of these, or deselect them, and actually in this particular case, I should say, if you wanted to deselect information from that report, using these bottom ones is going to allow you to do so. And you can sort of highlight potentially those properties are yet not in a portfolio. And we can see those are growing within my system there. Maybe that's an opportunity to clean that up. Or if I wanted to, I can, from any of these data points in here, select that, and it's actually going to highlight that particular date. In this case here, or at least that's what it's highlighting down the bottom. It's that particular week of this year. Clearing the selection, we'll go back to the standard line graph there as well. All right. Now, the final thing I might just do from here, just manipulating a singular chart, sort of showing you everything you might be able to do within one, is to right click. And right click gives you some interesting options in here. So you can just select, which is what we did just then. You have the option to put that into a pulse, which we'll talk more about later. But to give you a bit of an idea, it would take this particular portfolio change, pop that into a pulse, and you'd be able to put some thresholds or some limits around that, which would send you an alert. We can also drill down. So we could drill this down. So at the moment, this is looking at weeks. But if I wanted to drill down on that specific week, I could go with days in reports, at which point it's going to just drill down on information as it changed per day, or hours, or by 15 minutes, depending on how granular I wanted to get. And that's all just from the right click. Now, I am not going to display that right now because I've tested this and my computer will take a little while to load that. But trust me when I say it's certainly a really interesting way to get a deep, granular look at some of the things that are happening within your system. All right, now I want to get into some of the more advanced tools, some of these which have been with us for a while, but good to talk about because not everyone's aware of them. And I'm going to have a bit of a look at it from the performance trend here, as well as our properties and vacancy trend. Now, the performance trend, the performance trend chart, just as some of the other ones, now has some additional functionality through the option to change what we're looking at there in this particular performance trend. So that could be the property count, the average weekly rent, and our vacancy numbers, depending on what we're looking to chart there. We can also change, that between line, column, and bar, depending on what we want that to look like. So a column on this particular one here might be what we're looking for, but again, to be honest, I quite like the lines. It's a cleaner way of looking at things. A personal preference, though, each to their own. But one of the things I do want to talk about here is the Analyze It button. Now, the Analyze It button's been in the system for a while, so those that are familiar with it, this is not going to surprise them. But I have also found that this is something that not everyone's aware of, so I want to draw attention to it. And in this case, I just want to talk about the trend. So we do already have our trend line through it, nice little straight line there, but you have the option to change this, and depending on who you're producing this for and what purposes you need and what maybe point you're trying to make, you can come through and you can change how this is displayed. Coming down to trend settings, I might choose to put this in as a logarithmic trend instead, which is actually telling me that our property count growth has, tapered off. Depending on what information's in your system, you might even be able to compare it to, say, previous years, previous quarters, previous months, and to put some comparison information into there. I'm going to go with month and turn that one on there. I think at this point in time, I don't quite have enough data in there this year so far, but we'll see what it does. Yeah, there we go. Now we've got a trend line in there compared to the previous month. So we can at least see we're doing better, but yeah. And you can get some interesting information thrown into there. And let's just close that one off. On this graph down here, I want to demonstrate two things that I quite like. First of which, and this is going to take it a little bit to load, so I'm going to do this first. I might choose to say, I want to pull this out of here. Maybe I want to use the forecasting that we can sort of see at the end here. But I want to remove a lot of the information from this side here. Might have a look at the bottom here and say, okay, so let's look at from a forecasting point of view. Maybe this much will do. So I can highlight this, just dragging with my mouse, and then it'll give me this little drop-down window here where I can choose to select that. I can choose to drill into more data as well. But in this case, I'm just going to select that there. And what that's going to do is it's going to take what I've highlighted and pull that into this particular report. Oh, sorry, focus this particular chart onto what I've just highlighted. There we go. You can see that there. So now that's focused that chart just onto what I've highlighted there. I do have a couple of other options here. I can come up to Analyze again, at which point I can have a look at the forecast. I suspect I know what I've done here. And if I have a look at my forecasting settings, there we go. I can add a forecast to that, although I don't think I've got enough data points in there. One of the limitations of forecast, I shouldn't say limitations, but one thing you need to know about the forecast is that if you don't have at least 30 points of data in there, it won't forecast anything. It's just looking for that. So you need to have that in what you're looking at there. So I've gone a little bit too narrow on that one. Might just clear that section. But it certainly does allow me to focus on a specific point in time. Now, down the end here as well, you can see that that is forecasting that into the future. We've got some lines continuing off, letting us know what it thinks it's going to be able to do. And if I wanted to edit that forecast, I can come through, clicking on Analyze It, Forecast, and I can edit that by a vacant property line or the property line there. So, sorry, the vacancy rate, I guess, the vacant properties in my portfolio, as well as the properties, at which point I can come through and I can change those settings as well. Sort of what I just showed you earlier. One thing you certainly can do here, so it'll default to about 6 weeks, but if I wanted to have a bit of a look at that over, say, the next 12 weeks, I can hit apply and that'll add that to that graph. Now, of course, it's only as accurate as the information that's been popped into the system. So keeping track of your vacancies, obviously you're going to put your new properties into the system, but keeping track of your vacancies and making sure that's been kept up to date, but in particular, making sure that your vacant properties are actually being marked as inactive when they are inactive, so that those numbers as low as possible is going to make sure that this graph is reporting as accurate as possible. But you can sort of see what that's doing there. Again, of course, if I'm looking to take this out of here, maybe I want to clip this and put this onto a report. I have that option to come through. I can download that as an image or a CSV, at which point, if I was to go with that image there, it's just going to pull just this chart out of the system. So I've got that in an image that I can then share with the team if need be, or pop into a report of my own. All right, so now that's the all properties report. one of the oldest reports in the system, I suspect, and certainly something that anyone who's looked at analytics is almost certainly clicked into. But as you can see, we've made quite a few different changes to that. We've added new functionality around the charts. We've updated the charts. And of course, you've got the options to go in there and really start to get some, or get even more information out of it than you ever did before. So it's a great thing to have a bit of a look at. But that's not necessarily the report that everyone wants to look at today. I want to now get into and have a bit of a look at some of the new reports that we've built. And to kick that off, I'm going to get into our data cleanse report. So the data cleanse report, this is a new one that has been popped into the system. It's designed to provide indicative issues with data. And this report should provide, does provide massive 28 metrics that pull from 7 other reports. And there is the option through all these reports to be able to quickly jump through to the relevant, there's an option from this screen to quickly jump through to the relevant reports that data is getting pulled from. So just having a bit of a look at it from a heads up point of view. Now, when we're talking about filtering, and I know I put a lot of emphasis on filtering earlier, but with this particular report, this is really a true overview report, and it's only got a singular filter in here for the office. Should give you a bit of an indicator of what it's doing. But as we have a bit of a look, you can see it's pulling information from that all properties report, from the owner's report, gained and loss report, tenants report, revenue report, inspections report, maintenance report, and it's all getting pulled through to this particular centralized data cleanse report. Now, any one of these, if I wanted to click through and if I was looking at these metrics down the bottom here, I've got an option with any one of these to come through, download that, or to create a pulse, and we'll talk more about pulses later. But if there was something in here, I thought, oh, okay, we've got properties without owners. Why are they sitting in the system? And I wanted to click into the report. I can quickly click into that, and that'll pull that up there. And what that does is it pulls up that report pulls up the report inside of the report, if that makes sense. At which point we can then sort of use this to drill down a little bit further. Now, I did want, pardon me, I did want to go through a specific one here, just to sort of demonstrate how you might choose to use that. And for this, I'm going to jump into the gained and lost report. Certainly one of the ones which we see a lot of value in using within the system, but is also one of the clearest indicators of where data starts to need to be used within the system, because it's something that has to be added by the users in order to get the most out of it. That said, though, this particular data cleanse report will give you a really good indicator of whether or not you are recording your gained and lost information. In this case here, for the most part, I am. The numbers are pretty low, but I can see in here that I have lost one owner recently and I've gained one owner recently. And from here, I could click on the go to gained and lost report, at which point it's going to pull that up onto screen over the top of the data cleanse report. And I could go through here and start to have a bit of a look at finding out exactly what property that is and getting a bit more information out of it. Now, this is where filters can come in handy, and obviously we're looking at a gained and loss report. So I'm going to turn off a few of these. I don't need the report date yesterday, so I want a bit more information into there. But specifically, what I want to have a bit of a look at in this case would be, say, gained reason, at which point I'm going to filter down on, let's have a bit of a look at this here. So basically, I want to look for the gained well, I've got gained reasons in the system. I don't want to filter down by any of those. I want to filter down by no reason. So once this list loads, that's what I'm going to select. So my top reason here, NA, and I want to find the property that has no gained reason. And I might just pop this into a table so I can quickly pull that up on screen. Oh, got quite a few properties in here with no gained reason. Oh, right, I've filtered by a much longer period of time. It's certainly worthwhile putting that in with a sensible time range. Let's just say, let's have a look at this in the last 30 days as an example. At which point, it's going to tell me how many properties have no gained reasons that have been added to the system in the last 30 days, so to speak. point, I can use that to go back to the team to say, hey, look, I need you guys to report this into the system because this is something I track to make sure that I know where we're winning business and where we're losing business. And there we go. There's my property that I was looking for. Team Allison has brought this on, but I'm going to have to go back to them and say, look, I need you to pop in that information, so to speak. From here, of course, I can take this out of the system, image, CSV, PDF, whatever I need, produce that, and potentially for this one, I might look to take that along to the PM team to say, to just sort of remind everyone to update this information. No worries. Cool. Alrighty then. So let's have a look at the next new report. And this one is probably my favorite one so far, and it is the My Monthly Report. Now, this one is one which is access restricted. So you, if you need access, remember to come through and ask your super user for access. But let's click in and have a bit of a look. Now, this is a big boy of a report, and certainly can take a little bit of time. Sometimes certainly can take a little bit of time to load, and it does give you a bit of a heads up on that one there as well. Just let this one get into here. Okay, here we go. Okay, it's starting to pop some of these in. Now, let's just talk about from what we can see here. So the My Monthly Report, reason why I quite like it is it's giving me heads up stats, which I think would be great from an operationals point of view. Obviously, we've got sort of active properties, average rent, average commission last month, that sort of information. But as we go down, properties gained, properties lost, maintenance requests open more than 50 days, or 14 days, sorry. Total income, new leases, vacant properties, and as well as a bunch of other stats in here, which can be really, really useful for from an operational perspective with regards to just making sure that your portfolios are doing what you want them to do. You do have the filters over here. Of course, you can filter by office. If you've got multiple offices, you can filter by portfolio as well as fee type, depending on what you're wanting to do with the information that's in here. But I wanted to run just a quick sort of example of how you might choose to use this and some of the functionality that this report has, which is unique to it. Now, one of the things this report does, which is similar to the data cleanse report, is it does have some buttons in here which can pull that relevant report that it's pulling the information from up on top of your screen. Clicking on the maintenance report from here. So I'm going to use my maintenance as my example here, and clicking on maintenance report is going to bring the maintenance report up on top of my screen, where I would be able to further drill down onto that maintenance and get more information out of here. Okay. So as I said, so as we get into here, I can have a bit of a look, and first things first, I can see where my maintenance is coming from. So I have 64 new maintenances in the Brisbane portfolio. That's a lot, and I've got to ask my question why. But as I come down the page, having a bit of a look at some of the other stats, I can see a bit further down here under my source of those maintenance requests that most of them are coming through from the scheduler. Now, the scheduler means this is reoccurring maintenance which has been created but not closed. That's what it's telling me at least. And I'm thinking, right, that's coming through from the Brisbane portfolio. I've got everything I need from this report. I'm going to click that. And I'm now going to jump into my maintenance workflow. So that's just, you can see how we've got maintenance report and maintenance workflow. I can open that up. Let's just I want to confirm what's going on there. And let's open that up in a new tab, and we can see that there. Yep. We know it's the Brisbane portfolio, and yes, it's recurring maintenance. Got garden maintenance, garden maintenance, garden maintenance, pool maintenance, and it's not been closed off. So now I know exactly, well, I've been able to find exactly what I was looking for. Starting with the report, it's giving me the heads up. Okay, that's a lot more than I was expecting. That's certainly a lot more than I was expecting with regards to open maintenance. And I've been able to drill into that really easily by clicking into the report. So have a look at those stats. I've been able to suss it out from there. I've jumped through the maintenance workflow and I can now say produce a report or just send an email out asking the team to get on top of it and to start cleaning that up. There are tons of other ones in here where you can perform similar sort of actions. And you can go through and you'll note that a lot of these relate to reports. Quite a few of these relate to workflows. We can go through and you can start to tidy things up. Really, really good report to have a bit of a look at and start to drill down on. Now, you will also see a portfolio breakdown underneath each one of these, giving a bit of a heads up. Just my system at this point in time is not loading that. Now, that is unique to me, as we have discovered today. You should find no issues with that there. All right. Now, the next new report that I want to have a bit of a look at is the referrals report. So coming through to here, clicking on referrals and having a bit of a look at it. So the referrals report is a new report that has been designed to report on the referral process between AgentBox, Console Cloud, and AgentBox. And actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my screen share ever so slightly, as I've just got another system I want to have a bit of a look at that with, which is actually hooked up to, it's just going to pull through a bit more information where it's got that sync going between the two systems. We can see how that's working. It's coming through here. Okay, so here we go. So coming through here, the referrals report, what this is going to have a bit of a look at for you guys is it's going to show you, well, total number of referrals, year to date, heads up stats across the top. And then with the charts that's showing through here, we can see rental referrals and sales referrals sort of side by side. Rentals on the left, sales on the right. So we can see the ones that are coming through from here. So these are sales appraisals that have been requested. So that's from console out. And you can see who the referrers are in there. So who's sending the most referrals. On the rental side, of course, these are the ones that are coming in, and you can see who has sent these through from AgentBox. Some pretty straightforward information, really clear, heads up, easy to read, and certainly worthwhile having a bit of a look at. And one which I think anyone who wants to just make sure, or potentially a straightforward report can give some really good insight into, say, your internal referral process, how it's working, who your top performers are on that particular one, and just something you can use to encourage the team to make sure that those sales referrals are going, well, sales and rental referrals are flying backwards and forwards, of course. Now, the last new report that I want to have a bit of a look at is it comes under our business KPI reports, and it is the business growth report. So I might actually flick this one back to here. Okay. And just as that loads. Sorry, guys. It's taking a little longer than I would like. Okay, here we go. I'm going to click it over to here. So I've got business growth in here, and the business growth report has been added and is designed to be a positive reinforcement of business performance. It has 5 key metrics, along with annual comparisons, as well as the ability to do also, as well as 2-year trends with forecasts built into there as well. Just give it a second. Sorry, guys. My computer is really chugging. I'm going to just move on for a bit. It does look like it's nearly there. We might just come back to this one in a second, as I might just come through and have a bit of a look at our pulses just while that loads. I do apologize about that. Nothing like, I think it's Zoom interfering with my ability to be able to display that quickly. Now, having a bit of a look at pulse. So you will have noticed when you come through that you do have pulse as a function within here. And pulse is where you're going to find, well, where you can put key metrics that you're looking to track, almost into a dashboard that you can set up for yourself, and you can set up alerts based off these to be sent through to you when certain things happen. Now, let's have a bit of a look at how we might set up some of those. So I'm just going to come through to my reports, and I'm going to have a bit of a look at, say, let's start with my gain and loss report first. Clicking into my gain and loss report, this is going to, well, obviously it's going to have a bit of a look at the gain and loss stats for my system. And I'm going to scroll right to the very, very bottom of this particular report. And what we want to have a look at here is just this section down here. You'll note a lot of your reports have a pulse selections section down the bottom here, where you can come through and you can go create pulses based off some pre-configured ones down here, which we think you'd be interested in. And what I want to have a bit of a look at is, let's just say, gained this week or gained this month as an example, or potentially lost this week or lost this month, depending on what I'm looking to do there. And what I can do is I can create a pulse to myself, which I can use. Which I might use as an always pulse. So this is something that I want to get maybe every 24 hours. Potentially, I might want to get that every few minutes, or maybe I want to get this every few days. So let's just say I wanted to get this every 7 days at 9 a.m. as an example. At which point, what console's going to do for me is it's going to send that through to me every 7 days at 9 a.m. based off the day that I'm starting that. So that is Tuesday at this point in time. So popping that into there, that's going to send me that so I know what I've gained this month to date so far. Another good one that you might want to pop into here, and just having a look at one of the other functions that we have, and I'm going to have a look at the tenant report for this. And what we're going to have a look at here is how the automatic pulse might work. All right. Coming through here, and one of the things I wanted to have a bit of a look at here is, say, the percentage of my tenants that are in arrears. Coming down the bottom, I can see down here that I've got a percentage in arrears for my as one of my pulse selections. And what I might do with this one is I'm going to use this one as automatic. Now, what this does is the system's going to monitor this value for anomalies. Now, anomaly would be, say, this spiking for some unknown reason, at which point it would send me an alert if that happens. And how we might put a bit more, how we might send that through to us. So from the bottom here, I'm going to click on Advanced. And from here, it's going to give me the option to customize what that says to me when that comes through. So I'm going to pop a message into here to say, there has been a spike in arrears. At which point, when I receive that particular email, it's going to let me know that there's been a spike in arrears. It's going to tell me what the arrears percentage is on my portfolio. Obviously, yours shouldn't be at around 80%. And that is something that was going to come through to my email. Clicking on Add is going to pop that into the system. Now, if I want to look at any of the pulses that I have set up, and keep in mind, I can set up pulses with pretty much everything within the system, and you can get really quite advanced with them. And if I ever want to have a look at the pulses that I have set up, I can come through to the pulses dashboard in Analytics, where I'll be able to see them all in here. You see, I've got a few duplicates in here, and there's a few things to look at here as well. We do have history on some of these where it'll have a look at history over time. Obviously, this one hasn't been tracked for very long. It's just been created, but we'll be able to see where that pulse has been triggered over time. And a good one over here, I think this one's been in the system for a while, so we can sort of see that going up and down over weeks there. We have the option to come through from here as well. We can open the dashboard, so we can click into that, and that's going to take us through to where that is getting pulled from. And we have the option to come through, edit, duplicate. We can turn off on whether or not we're going to be receiving new notifications on this one here, and we can just turn off the report altogether, which means that the alerts will be unavailable for this report for all users. Or we could just potentially delete this from here as well. And yeah, and probably one of the things I really want to sort of drive home with this is the ability to be able to create your own dashboard with your own stats into here, where you can quickly and easily come into your analytics, click on pulses, and get straight through to these key KPIs that you want to be keeping an eye on. Now, let's come back to here we go. Coming back to our business growth report, and let's just finish up here for the day. The business growth report is where you're going to be able to come through, and as I said earlier, you'll be able to keep track of 5 key metrics, and we really wanted this to be a positive reinforcement of your business performance. And you can come in here, and what you'll be able to see, sort of with I believe it's 2-year trend. Sorry, it's 2 years worth of forecasting within here, so last year and this year, as well as relevant trend lines where that compares. Now, one of the things we are seeing here with this portfolio growth, and it's a really good example where you can see this just at the end here, you can see this forecasted trend line through here. That's coming off the back of how we went last year, and we are effectively tracking that against how we're going this year. And so far, we seem to be exceeding it, which is fantastic, of course. Coming into Analyze, I have the option to come through, just like the reports that I showed you earlier, where I could come through and I can have a look at that prior year, actual versus forecasting, as well as coming through and just updating that a little bit there, depending on how far into the future I want that to go and what data I want that to be pulling through. Now, down the page as well, you do have an average weekly one in here. You can have a look at your gained properties, as well as you can have a look at your average commission. My business might want to have a look at what our BDM is signing deals for. I can see how we've been growing that business, of course, but that commission is steadily going down. Finally, there is average fee revenue in here. Now, this is indicative of a training system. Big spikes, but otherwise, we're not paying ourselves regularly enough, apparently. But it's still a good one, and certainly one worthwhile having a bit of look at, and within your system to make sure that everything hopefully is trending upwards. With that said, I just want to thank everyone for their time for today and for jumping on this particular session. I want to recap to say that basically, just to go through what we've gone through today, all reports have been redesigned with updated functionality, with the intention of making it easier for you to use. The new reports should hopefully broaden the scope of what you can use analytics to track and get out of the system. And we want to say that pulses are a great way of keeping your finger on the pulse of the business. No pun intended. You get the idea of where we got the name from. But I suppose, yeah, actually, here's a couple of quick questions coming through chat there. Alison seems to be on it for the most part, and it seems to be pretty well answered. All right, I'm going to finish up by just popping a final poll out there.